the thing you'll want to be the most careful about is the mafia. The more you hear about a mafia in the city, usually it's the less strong it is. If people are afraid to speak of it, that usually means it's a lot more present. The other rule of thumb is the farther north you go, the less mafia. The farther south you go, the more. And mafia really isn't as much of a problem as you'd think. You see these movies where the mafia are kind of romanticized and they're all these really good guys and they just are this band of brothers. It's not usually quite so much that way. But there are a number of mafia that are very religious. And some of them, that's a bad thing because that's a bad thing in relation to us because we're not Catholic. But some of them, as long as you're professing the name of Jesus Christ, they'll respect you. And then there are some of them that are just plain criminals. Think the hardest, most homicidal gangster you can imagine, and that's these guys. They kill a lot of people. But I had an experience where we actually taught a mob boss's wife. And we didn't know that at the time. We were in this area called, backing up a little bit, I was near Napoli. There's this town outside Napoli called Castellamare, which means castle by the sea. Castle by the sea. And it has this castle up on the hill by the sea. And it's beautiful. I try not to have a favorite area, but that was my favorite area. It was amazing. The people were great. The farther south you go, the more open people are to let you in, the less they'll get around to doing the reading and the coming to church and the following up with commitments, but they're far more willing to listen. We always had our appointment book full and really good people, humble people. A lot of them didn't know how to read. The farther north, the more prideful, but when they get interested, they'll keep with their commitments and they'll probably be more likely to get baptized. But in the south, they're poorer. The mafia saps their money. And Castellamare is where most of the mob bosses lived. They do their work in Napoli, and they live in Castellamare. Like right near our house, a block and a half away, there was this huge house with these big old gates around it, and spikes and razor wire on the top, huge dogs patrolling it, all kinds of cameras and motion sensors everywhere. And I never asked, but I can tell you that's a mob boss's house. You kind of learn to recognize that sort of thing. And there was the Omobono d'Alessandro and the Scarpa clan. And usually if you're in the area, who the clans are. In Napoli, they have this whole page. They have the sports page and the gossip page, and then they have the mafia page. And it was always featuring these guys. And we couldn't read the newspaper, but you see them everywhere. And even without that, you just come to learn kind of who the clans are. And you don't necessarily, unless you've lived there for 10 years or so, you don't know who on the street is mafia. But the people who live there do. And they'll usually just say it in a kind of euphemistic way.